So that Nintendo Switch 2 Direct was kinda crazy. Easily the best one we've had in recent years with all these announcements. But the one thing that really caught my attention is that some games are getting a nice coat of enhanced resolution and frame rate with Nintendo Switch 2 editions. Makes complete sense to do so. Capitalize on the Switch 2's power by giving games that were stuck on 30 FPS, barely reaching 1080p and improvement. But not only are these enhanced versions improved on Switch 2, but some of them get more content. And sure, Mario Party Jamboree is a gimmick fest with the new camera and mouse features, but Kirby gets a bonus story to play through. And you know for a fact that Nintendo's going to look at their lineup of Switch 1 games that could use a facelift and maybe some bonus content to keep the game active while the next new game is in development. Kinda sounds like a certain game, huh? Cause Splatoon 3 would very much benefit from an upgrade with maybe extra content to keep it active during this new console era. And as of now, these are the only games on Switch 1 receiving a free patch on Switch 2 to improve visuals. Splatoon 3, nowhere in sight. So, before I even talk about all the delusional predictions of what I think Splatoon 4 could be, now that Nintendo really gave us a sneak peek of what the Switch 2 is capable of, let me share with you some of my thoughts on Splatoon 3's future. I can see this going 3 different ways. Splatoon 3, Switch 2 Edition, Splatoon 3, Switch 2 Edition plus fresh new DLC, or nothing. We just wait for the next game, leaving Splat 3 with nothing. Probably the worst outcome, but let's think about it. If Nintendo goes with an enhanced version of this game with no new content, well, that's all it'll really get. It would be almost similar to Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. It's just a Switch 2 upgrade. And I mean, Splatoon 3 is already a good-looking game, arguably one of the best-looking first-party multiplayer games on the Switch, and it also runs at a nice frame rate as any multiplayer shooter should. But if we're increasing the resolution and frame rate and maybe even getting 4K support, which would be kinda crazy, it will be a really nice touch, and since the Switch 2 is better, it could fix a few issues here and there thanks to the better hardware. I'm sure if you're a Max Hazard player, you've encountered a fair share of your game tanking due to all the chaos on the screen, while the time still counts down at a normal pace. That could just be a thing in the past now with the Switch 2. And of course, let's not forget to add support for the new mouse feature, because if you're making a Switch 2 edition, it would make sense to add an exclusive Switch 2 gimmick. Kinda similar how Metroid Prime 4 is also getting added mouse support. And maybe to bring even more life to the game, third weapon kits will finally be real as a free update for all players, so everyone can have at least something new to try. Seems to be the most fair to me, since in this next timeline, we're kinda locking a new DLC behind a $500 paywall. And Nintendo is definitely no stranger to making enhanced versions of games with extra content on a new console. More so now with these actual Switch 2 editions of previous games. So let's just say Splatoon 3 Switch 2 edition gets everything I previously mentioned, plus a new DLC. Would that said DLC be content exclusive to the Nintendo Switch 2, similar to Jamboree TV and Star-Crossed World, as stated,
exclusive to the Nintendo Switch 2 edition?
Now to me it makes complete sense to have a Splatoon 3 Switch 2 edition, but would it be fair for that to have exclusive content as well? An easy fix could be giving Switch 1 players the ability to purchase that content, but then it really wouldn't be a Switch 2 exclusive. And what exactly would this extra content be? So far, all paid Splatoon DLC is single-player based, with the exception of Inkopolis Plaza being a hub for the online mode. But there's so much the devs could use as DLC. Post-Grand Fest storyline, Little Judd's acquisition of Grisco Aftermath, maybe even get more Pearl Marina and 8 story, even though that one did conclude, but it never hurts to see them again. Or maybe even something entirely new, maybe a lead up to Splatoon 4 with some time travel? But I'm not gonna get into that. And luckily, I really don't think it would also be some kind of multiplayer mode, even though as much as I would love an endless salmon run mode, and with the Switch 2 proving there's a possibility it could handle that dream of mine in a sequel, would only Switch 2 players be allowed to play it? So I really don't think we have to worry for some new Switch 2 multiplayer content, which is usually free, but who knows if it'll be an exclusive single-player DLC. Can you imagine that? The $500 DLC gear you can only get by having a Switch 2 and Splatoon 3 plus new fresh DLC. And let's not forget, With these new price increases, what's really stopping Nintendo from selling an upgraded version of this game with bonus DLC? Well, doing nothing would probably stop them. And honestly, that's the worst timeline. Sure, the increased price seems bad, but imagine with all the hype at an all-time high with the new console, you're throwing out crazy games left and right, and Splatoon kinda just sits there with nothing, impatiently waiting for some kind of content or news for the next game. And hey, who knows, maybe everything is saved for Splatoon 4, which probably won't see any kind of news until next year or the year after that. Maybe even if there's no paid upgrade version of the game, at most there may be some kind of free enhancement patch update, which includes the 3 new weapon kits for everybody. But at this point, I really believe that Splatoon 3 is headed in the direction of the Switch 2 paid upgrade that not only makes the game look nicer, run nicer, but it adds the mouse controls as an added justification for upgrading. But I'm not gonna lie, it would be really nice to see some kind of single-player DLC or extra online content or just something, just anything, in these trying times. This right here is the perfect reason to release the 3rd kits for free during the release of a brand new console so you could bring in new players and returning players to play the game again. If there is a Switch 2 version, the devs can use that as an extension to work on the next game. I've made jokes saying that Splatoon 4 will release on June 25th, 2027. But honestly now, I could kinda see it release a little bit further than that. I guess we'll really just have to wait and see how things go for the Switch 2 and what these game upgrades will provide, other than just better FPS, resolution, load times, maybe 4K and such. Because remember, if it's going to be on the Switch 2, it has to have an extra gimmick, just like Zelda is getting Zelda notes. And Metroid is also getting added mouse controls for Switch 2, so who knows what the standard of an upgrade is. Maybe Splatoon's list will also look like Metroid's if it's just a Switch 2 upgrade with no bonus content. But what do you think? What do you think Splatoon 3 is going to get on the Switch 2? Are we going to see a $500 gear set? Because I'm not going to lie, I didn't say it earlier, but I think it would be extremely funny if that happened. The $500 gear set. And if we do get a DLC, what's it gonna be and how long have the devs been working on it? Hey, don't forget to like and subscribe. And as usual, it may be too early to talk about Splatoon 4, but it's never too early to start some crazy predictions, which I'll be doing next time. Maybe. Unless it's something else. I'm not sure. We'll see.